this is Artie and Marissa, and you are listening to the podcast Birth Yourself Brave. And today we have fantastic, life-changing Sejal Shah. She's an executive coach and an EFT trainer. Welcome, Sejal.
Hello, Artie. Thank you for having me.
Well, I should be thanking you for accepting this invitation. I think one of the reasons, and I truly believe one of the main reasons we're doing this is thanks to your wonderful business constellation course that we hope to talk about today.
Yeah, I'm in your hands. I'm going to go wherever you guide the conversation.
That's great. It's funny, isn't it? We are in each other's hands. It's a mutual, beautiful synergy. I like to think of it like a figure of eight, where we just go with the flow, and it's a lovely way to expand on this title. Of course, we're talking about birthing yourself brave, but it's nice that with your experience and this beautiful concept of riding the wave of success that in a way your work has created for you and for others.
It has. I didn't know I was doing that in the beginning, but as I've found my way into relaxing more and more, it's actually become a natural way of being. And in spite of what this year, 2020, has brought, it's actually allowed me to navigate my journey through this year with a lot of grace. And I don't know that so many people would say that about this year. So there's something about having come this far that has allowed that kind of flow.
That's wonderful. It's very reassuring and very encouraging to hear your insights. And talking about this theme with all the changes that you've gone through and what has brought you with this experience that you're sharing. So how would you say you've birthed yourself brave with all these career changes? Well, not career changes, but with all the changes that you've gone through to become this wonderful executive coach and EFT trainer?
So if I take you back to 2006, which is when I transformed and changed careers, up until then, I had been practicing as a barrister, which is a lawyer in the UK system that works as a litigator and is an advocate in court. I worked in a very complex area of economic law and worked at an international level. So I worked in Brussels for the European Commission. I worked in the UK for the main UK regulator for competition law. I loved what I did. I worked on very high profile cases. I was part of a very large team that got the whole of the front page of the Sun newspaper with the decision we had on fining the Football Association and Manchester United for fixing the price of replica football shirts. So I worked on very big things to get a competition law case on the front page of the Sun, and that was the only story. That was pretty big.
Yeah, definitely.
So I was enjoying what I did. However, I had some personal challenges. I had fallen in love with my best friend, who is now my husband. He is white. My family were incredibly unhappy to the point where we became estranged. And that caused a huge amount of upset in my life because I was incredibly close to my mother and sisters. I'm still estranged from them because they are unable to accept my relationship. That was devastating. EFT came into my life courtesy of Gary Craig and his online resources. At that time, there were not so many practitioners of EFT, and I was so raw in my pain that I'm not sure I would have known how to talk about it or deal with it. It's not as if Asians are known for going into therapy, not at least 15, 20 years ago. So I found huge benefit and I released some of the distress immediately, I released enough that I could look up from where I had been beavering away during the day and then in the evenings tending to those wounds. And I looked up at work and I looked around and I could see that there was a colleague who was not sleeping at night and was worried that they were being a bad parent. There was another one who had miscarried and was quietly distressed and trying to cope. There were others who were very unable to do their role as a manager and have good interpersonal skills, and so on. People who had public speaking fears, and these are all colleagues, former colleagues, who were at the apex of their careers. We were all in very influential roles and doing very high profile work. As I looked up, I thought, well, I'm at a time in my life where it's easy to take a career break. And I knew neither my husband nor I wanted children. We were quite happy as we are. And I thought, well, what would happen if I took some time away and set up a business to help all these kinds of issues? I seem to have a gift in making things like EFT very approachable for a left brain logical audience. And that was 14 years on.
Yeah.
I haven't looked back.
You took me with you in that journey, that 14 years of that EFT journey.
It was something I did very step by step, because I did not know what I was doing, but I just let my heart guide me. And I've always had an ability to hear people, to understand what they're saying and what they're not saying. I remember as a child, as an older child, I'd have complete strangers come up and tell me deep secrets or things they didn't know why they were telling me, just in casual conversations, social conversations. So I've always had this knack, and EFT has allowed me to handle that, to be of service.
Yeah, so I'm going to ask you this, and I know we've got a nice, easy relationship, so I feel comfortable to ask you. So this is the way you explained that you've got this wonderful gift to explain EFT for those who are more logical. So, in case anybody that's hearing that isn't aware of what EFT is, would it be okay if you just share how you'd be able to say it in a very simple way?
That's a really good question. What I say to someone who's very much logical is that emotional freedom techniques allows a person to release their stress response in an easy way whilst using a mind-body connection. They use wordplay that allows them to focus on the topic at hand whilst using specific points on the head and torso to discharge stress from the nervous system.
Really, it's very straightforward. People can relate to that wordplay, and also the stress response, especially given, as you were saying, where we are at now with the pandemic, with the uncertainty, what's going to happen. So there's a lot. We are working from a very stressful plane at the moment.
We are indeed. And I think people are looking for answers, because so often talking therapies that have been traditionally used allow people to get immense clarity, but it's clarity on what their problems are. I think I had a client say recently, it's like knowing that you're in the swimming pool at the deep end and you talk about it and you realize where you are, but at the end you're still left in the swimming pool.
I agree. Yeah.
Instead, what we do is we give someone a stick or a rope that allows them to gently move up towards the shallow end and step out.
Yeah, that's beautifully said. even like myself, when you get people who want to just want them to be heard, they want to talk, so they want to just be heard, which is lovely. It's got its purpose and it helps to relieve that stress. But sometimes you want to be saved rather than to be heard, I guess, isn't it?
Yes, and I think you've touched on something really important there, because no facilitator of EFT saves anyone. All they're doing is helping the person help themselves.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, because who, first of all, who are we to save anyway? And you're not drown. In a way, it's like, it's that beautiful expression, isn't it? I'm broken. You're not broken to be mended. We are the way we are. We're just creating a more easier way of life, I guess, more happier way of life.
Definitely. And I think about what you've just said, thinking that you're broken. I used to look back and wish I hadn't had those circumstances, wish I hadn't been born with things and attitudes and beliefs that left their impact. At the time, it felt like they were open scars, open wounds that hadn't healed. And now I look back and I think they weren't they weren't as raw as I thought. It felt that way, but they've helped define me and make me who I am. And if it wasn't for those experiences, I really wouldn't be here with the knowledge I have or the life experience.
Yeah, and just reflecting upon what you've just said. If you didn't have all of those experiences, we wouldn't be having this conversation. You wouldn't be helping the millions of, well, the multitude of people that you're helping, which is, and it's a knock-on effect, because being a trainer, it's that ripple effect, isn't it? It's not only that particular person you're facilitating this knowledge to, but it's everybody else that they are sharing as well.
That's so true. One of my early students, so I used to do low cost sessions as part of my desire to be of service and give back to society. So I did low cost sessions at a local women's refuge. And she first came to me that way. And I always used to give out a handout. It was a two-sided handout of how to do EFT. And I obviously taught people simple things that they could do, but enough that they could go away and feel they could get on with some things. So this was a 3-hour course, and these were often women with very challenging issues. She came to quite a few of those, and much later in time, she said to me, after having done her practitioner training, I gave your handout to so many people. People me, Sejal, will never know, never meet. And she said, because you modeled it so clearly and in such an easy, approachable way, it felt like the easiest thing for me to share to others and to empower them. And then obviously there are directions to elsewhere, for example, Gary Craig and emofree.com and EFT International, wherever. But having someone model a tool that on the face of it seems simple, like EFT, but has all its complexities, that modeling in the first stage is such an easy doorway for someone to walk through. And that is the power of being a good bearer of a tool and giving someone a good experience in the first place.
Definitely. It's like, again, wearing our marketing hats. It's like, what do they say? It's the first 15 seconds that somebody makes an impression, or 3 seconds. People keep changing it, isn't it? It's being that example, which makes a long lasting effect on everybody else.
It really does. And I will never know most of these people, and I'm quite okay with that. If they've been helped, I think something you said to me recently, when you put out something that's of value, it comes back to you somehow, even if it's not in the way you intended.
Yeah, exactly. Which nicely leads on to what we want to talk about next, which is about the business constellation course, which is very difficult to put into words, because you have to. I also do the batch flowers, and people ask, so what are the batch flowers? It's so difficult to put it into words. The best way is to come and try it and experience the effect for yourself. But it is, the business constellation course is So simple yet so intricate. So I would love you to talk a little bit more about it, how much ever you would like to share in terms of making it approachable for others to understand.
Of course. So what I want to do is say what it is, and then I'll explain where it came from.
Yes, Ed.
The Business Constellations course, or Business Energetics, is a modality that found me. I had no intention of creating a new modality. What Business Energetics does is it helps people look at their relationship or relationships to do with their business. When someone has a clear, easy connection with their business and parts in their business like their marketing, their niche audience, their IT systems, when those relationships are flowing, they then experience more success. Back to riding a wave of success, it is much easier to enjoy that. In all the dealings I've had with business people, business leaders, the things that actually stymie them and get in the way are when they don't have effective relationships. That disharmony comes from their own perceptions and their own history. So in business energetics, we're actually drawing on the wisdom of our ancestors who help form a field of knowing around what we're looking at. And that field of knowing allows us to bring a huge amount of clarity through the lens of compassion. That's an overview. The complexity comes from how we do it on the surface. Let me tell you a little bit about where this comes from, because that will kind of give a sense of why there is complexity. Back around 2008, 2009, I was exploring something called family constellations. Family constellations is a modality that was created in Germany by a psychotherapist called Bert Hellinger. He had been a missionary in post-war South Africa. So he had gone there ostensibly to convert people to Christianity. Instead, native African leaders and elders helped him understand the profound wisdom that consulting with long deceased ancestors brought. The main understanding in that system is that love always wants to flow. Love is the key language in relationships. However, there are events that happen that are part of human experience that stop the flow of love. By drawing on the wisdom of ancestors and by tending to those relationships in a very simple and honest way with a lot of kindness, we allow that love to flow. What I did with the help of others was to draw on the wisdom of that system of family constellations, bring some of the structures and principles in, and then use EFT to ease the disharmony. And from that, what seemed to happen was that there was a profound sense of clarity. In some ways, the simplicity is in being with the system and the energy. The complexity comes from our minds wanting to do, analyze, to overthink, to complicate how we perceive things. So there's a kind of two-sided coin there. On the face of it, it should be simple, but on the other hand, because of our upbringings and all our belief systems, we can overcomplicate how we should approach things. All I do is bring in more release of stress, and allow for things to fall into place. When we get the inner workings of ourselves flowing, things on the outside just fall into place, and they do it with quite jaw-dropping results very often.
Yeah, because when we're suppressing, or we are going against something, we're going against the current. That's when a lot of blockages occur. It's like that example that they use of the river flowing. If you place a dam, it will just create a big rush of the actual energy of the water. Whereas if you allow it to flow, and I love what you just said about love and compassion, that is like amazing, because that's what we lack in today. We just don't have time for that love and compassion, not only for others, but for ourselves.
Definitely. And I know it can sound odd to talk about love in business, but I have seen people transform their working lives so that they have the quality of clients they want as well as the flow. They have systems come into place that actually make their working lives easier, so they have more quality time for other pursuits. They find that difficult colleagues and members of staff, either they transform without having to have lots of remedial input, or those same people choose to move on and find another line of work, another job. So things just fall into place, and it can seem, well, this is magical talk. And I sometimes wonder at the results that show up. But all that's happening is that we're relaxing ourselves. And as a result, other people don't respond with antagonism. Their buttons aren't being pressed in the same way. When you release that kind of drama, a much better construct happens and falls into place.
Definitely, I definitely was. I remember when I first came, and that's how we met as well. There was so much going on, and I completely resonate with what you said, because sometimes when you resist, that when you have less resistance and you ease into where you are in the present moment, or in that constellation, you are able to allow things to happen which you were resisting, and when you are going with the flow, that's when you can wave, you can ride that wave of success, and in a way you birth yourself brave, because you just go through those emotions.
You do. Really, we're talking about having an authentic version of you show up. And when you do that, your clients, your customers get the best of you. And all of a sudden, you are lit up because you're seeing their recognition. I had an email this morning from someone. So 2020 has been a staggering year of business for me. I'm not on top of my bookkeeping, that's how busy I am, but by a rough estimate, my business has grown by at least 20% in revenue. And I was already doing very well before. And some of my success stories are that people have actively found me out. So there's someone in another region in a completely different part of the world who was looking for a trainer of emotional freedom techniques, and she spotted a listing I'd got, but it didn't work out timing wise for her time zone. And we went back and forth, and in the end found a good time. I put on a course, and she helped gather a whole group of people. Just this morning I had an email. Someone was asking her about the workshop with me. What would she say about it? And without me even asking, I said, say whatever you want. It's you that she's asking that information of. She gave feedback, and she chose to share it with me afterwards. And it was just the most beautiful thing to read. Completely unsolicited on my part. I had no clue. But that's the kind of experience you have where people actively seek you out because they see the qualities you demonstrate and they find that of value.
Definitely, and it's a slow burner. I think a lot of the times the reasons why we think things don't work for us is because we're expecting instant results. Whereas with business constellation and all of this work, it's very subtle, and it's very slow, but it's steady. It's steadily helping you ride that wave of success.
Can I reframe that?
Yeah, of course.
So it is slow in some instances, and in others, it's like lightning.
Yeah, yeah, sorry, yes, of course. Definitely. The thing is, I've done the course a while ago now, but I'm still finding the effects, and it's multifold. So yes, of course. And I remember when I did the course with you as well, I got so many opportunities that I wouldn't have dared to do before. So I completely agree.
It really varies with what is right for the person, which is why I'm careful about how I market it. That I really am not promising instant overnight results. I can't guarantee that. What I can offer is an experience which is filled with more ease, more pleasure about being in business. And as you navigate your work, opportunities will show up as is best suited to you then. I've had people have profound real world results that even took me aback, because I did not know what their situation was until they explained, and until they explained afterwards. And so I can't predict what's going to arise. And I suppose that's part of the joy. It's I'm not really trying to push for particular results. If anything, I relax even more when someone is saying, well, I really need this. I'd invite them to relax. And from that, amazing things happen. But I don't count it just in terms of outer results. If I can help the person find more satisfaction with where they are, from that, something even better is going to manifest for them.
Satisfaction, that's the key word. I think a lot of us are looking for that sense of inner satisfaction, which helps us to be able to go through those ups and downs that we are confined within, isn't it?
Indeed, yes.
Definitely. So, anything else you wanted to mention about the business constellation? Because I was going to ask you a few tips to share with others.
Sure. So the Business Energetics, it's a 6-week course. We meet once a week for 90 minutes. I vary the hours at which we meet over the year. So, for example, there'll be a 6-week stint of sessions for one group at a particular time zone. This way I've managed to work with people pretty much every part of the world. So later in the year, it might be a different time of day. And that just means I can meet demand. But it's always small groups, no more than 5. So it's quite an intimate experience, always safe, playful as well.
Yeah, definitely. And something that you look forward to is that sense of community and the accountability with each other, which is beautiful.
Yes. So often people just forge some beautiful bonds, and there's a real sense of a network of support. It's beautiful for me to witness.
Definitely. Definitely. No, thank you. And what about any tips you'd like to share with others how they can birth themselves brave in their journey? Because hearing your journey and how it is challenging. Missing your family. Standing up to the love of your life, going through a career change. You've gone, and you're still smiling. You're standing. You're, as you said, isn't it? You're an example of that ease yourself. What can you share with others?
You've just said my first tip, which is cultivate a mindset of ease. So you're familiar with my use of that word. It's probably, at the moment, I seem to be teaching that so much to different clients and practitioner students of mine. So here's the thing. Much of what we're taught in our upbringing in Western society and even Asian culture is that you have to work hard to get anywhere. I'm not disagreeing about effort. There is something about applying yourself. However, where we can approach things through a frame of ease, we start noticing and spotting opportunities that we might have disregarded. So I spent a year back in 2011 working with this one word, ease. I don't do affirmations. I do a word for the year. I'd grown up with a huge hard work ethic, and it was a bit of an empty feeling I clearly achieved a lot given my previous career, and I had always performed well academically. However, there was a huge amount of emptiness around all those achievements. I started transforming that whole mindset, and I asked myself, how can I bring more ease to this, whatever it was I was doing? What happened over the course of that year was I changed profoundly, and more came to me in ways that deeply satisfied. So my first tip is, how can you cultivate a mindset of ease?
Beautiful. I think that deep satisfaction comes from that attitude and mindset of ease. Thank you.
And then the second tip I've got is, find others whom you can work with who will help you identify your blind spots. We all have them. No one, no matter how successful they may seem, has their own issues. And that will continue for me till the day I die, I know, because I have a desire to continue to grow. We can't see our own blind spots. Someone whom we trust, who will tell us in a way that is compassionate, thoughtful, kind, where they can help us identify those blind spots, will actually make our journey forward much easier, much more successful.
Definitely. It's like having your tribe, isn't it? It's like having your network of ladies or men, just your, I would say it's your comfort zone.
Yes. And for example, close friends might not always tell you, or they might not tell you in a way that's very productive. It's easier sometimes for family members to be critical and say, well, you always do that wrong. Whereas someone who can say, well, look, this is something I notice you doing. And if you did this instead, you might actually find things better. So for example, my husband I would tell him, well, I don't like you doing this. And I'd tell him all about the problem that I was noticing. And he said to me, what do you want me to do better? And that was actually helpful to me, that instead of moaning at him, it would be better for me to say, I've noticed this. Can you do this instead, please?
Very solution focused rather than problem focused.
It is indeed. And that leads to my third one. So we are in a world where there is a lot of sharing that we do or choose to do on social media or different platforms. It's one way to birth ourselves brave, that we can show up and share what we are about. What I would invite those who are in the self-development field or interested in that is to consider sharing what they have already composted. By that, what I mean is that it's quite easy to share emotional dramas. And there is a lot of draw to that in getting followers, people to listen and engage. We garner a lot of sympathy. However, that can create a bit of back and forth and almost like a tug of war, that there's a right and a wrong. What I would love to see more of in the self-development field, and we are seeing some, is that people talk about, I had this problem, I've dealt with it, this is my composted truth. When we take the drama out of something, yes, we might not get the casual passers-by, but what we're doing is actually sharing a vibe of peace and empowerment. And I would love to see more of that in the world.
Definitely. I have to share this. It's like I heard this phrase, which really I coined it because I love it so much. It's like talking from your scars rather than from your wounds.
Yes.
Gone through it. It's like composting, as you said, and sometimes we can get tired of those cheap thrills, whereas we want long-lasting changes and responsibility and just as again going back to what you were saying before, the love and compassion for others and for ourselves.
Exactly. And this is how we model a better world. If people are drawn to self-development, they're typically wanting things to improve. where we start modeling that energy of improvement, there's so much more potential for growth, for change in the wider world.
Definitely. And, coming from it from an EFT point of view, where we're told to validate what we're feeling rather than just going into the solution, it's taking it step by step, or as you said, the lightning effect as well. So sometimes it can be very quick, and other times it can be a little bit slower, but just going with the flow, I guess.
And it's so right, whatever that speed, that's what I'm noticing, that it's just right for what that person is ready for in that time frame. And then it can change and go to a different speed.
Definitely. Well, thank you, Sejal. I think it's been wonderful the way you come into this world of emotional freedom technique, business energetics, and all these tips that you're sharing with everyone else. I'm sure, hopefully, everybody has found it very useful, and hopefully, we may be able to do another one soon as well.
That sounds lovely. Thank you, Artie. You've held the space beautifully.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening. Please do not forget to rate, review, and subscribe for future episodes, and also to let other people know that we exist. If there are any links mentioned that you cannot view, visit the YouTube channel Artie and Marissa, and you will find them on the relevant episode under the playlist of Birth Yourself Brave podcast.